This time I'd like to call up the panel for we talked a lot about innovation. This is the panel about FirstNet Innovation for our first responders. And with us moderating the panel today is Jason Porter, who is the president for the public sector at FirstNet and AT&T, by AT&T. Our panel is Chief Kim Zagaris, also known as Chief Z, also known as an American treasure himself. We'll tell a little bit of that story, or maybe we'll let you tell that story, because that's it. Also, we have Sheriff Michael Adkinson from Walton County, Florida. Welcome. And we think we have, there we go, up on that screen over there. We don't have one on this screen right here. We have Christopher Becenti, who's the Executive Director for the Navajo Nation Telecommunications Regulatory Commission from Window Rock, Arizona. Chris, thank you for being here. And then Charlie Guddemi, who's the SWIC and the Homeland Security Emergency Management Agency for the District of Columbia. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jason.
All right, thanks, Chief Moore, and thanks everybody for coming. Thank you so much for sitting here in this room and spending time with us. Most importantly, thank you for your service to our country and to the communities you serve every day. It is, you know, as I've been sitting here and watching today, it's truly humbling, honestly, to be able to stand on the shoulders of these heroes that have spoken, and all of you who are in the room who've helped bring this to reality. But every day you've devoted your lives to serving, and I just can't thank you enough for what you've done. And for me personally, pouring into me, Harlan, I can't tell you how many countless hours he spent educating me and coaching me. I'm going to say educating is the nice way to say sometimes Harlan's lessons. But Chief Johnson, Dick, I think you're still in the back. Chief Carrizo, Chief Dowd. I mean, just everywhere I look, it's somewhere new. In fact, Chief Ludgood and I, a great example. You've talked a lot about how, AT&T fought hard to win the contract, but we're fighting for every connection every day, but not just the connections that we're getting, but for every life that is out there at the end of that line. We fight for it and we treat it like it's the most important thing ever. And Chief Ludgood got into storytelling. Ryan Birchnell and I ran into Chief Ludgood when we were out trying to traverse the streets of after Hurricane Laura in Louisiana, and we ran into Chief Ludgood. And Chief Ludgood, right there, we redesigned how we support agencies in the aftermath of a major disaster like that. So, to use Mayor Benjamin's terms, I don't have enough ears to listen enough to public safety here and to continue to learn. It's a constant evolution. We are not where we need to be. We will never be where we need to be, but we strive to get better every day. And I appreciate all your guidance and coaching along the way. It is a celebration. Thank you so much. 10 years ago, you had this vision, and honestly, it's amazing to see where it's come. You've heard a lot of the numbers through the day, right? You've heard 3 million connections that we've got now on FirstNet. Those are 3 million connections that are depending on us. 19,500 agencies are depending on us. They're counting on us every day. So it is with humility that we serve that community every day. 95% of the contractual build is complete, over 95%, and that includes areas, to Harlan's comments a minute ago, we've covered parts of this country that would never be covered if it wasn't for the vision of you in this room and your hard work. Because I think, as a panelist said before, when public safety isn't using that spectrum, then the community gets to use it. And so you've got tribal lands and territories that are using this spectrum that have no other means of communication. You've got areas, maritime lands that are now able to get this signal, mountainous areas, rural areas, all kinds of space that was uncovered before. We now have, and as we announced this morning, 2.81 million square miles covered. So we cover more first responders than any network in the country, as Harlan said. And it's just amazing to see the innovation, right? We're going to talk about innovation here on this panel. We've got now over 370 devices that have been launched. So I think it was talked about when we started this, it was sort of like a hope, a prayer that that others would rally and come to this cause. And now you've got more people flocking to this cause than we can imagine, and an ecosystem of support from device makers and application developers. We have 190 applications in our ecosystem. So it is just a constant development stream that is living and thriving. The vision of you, I think you called them the Four Horsemen earlier, and the broader community of public safety, to make this such that it is thriving and constantly evolving and repairing itself is just phenomenal. So some of those innovations, and Scott Agnew's not here. Oh, he's back in the back there. Lots of credit to him and Brenda Kittela for constantly pushing the envelope on innovation, right? They've brought forward some of the things you've heard talked about. FirstNet Push-to-Talk, the first mission-critical push-to-talk solution, and it integrates with whatever your LMR solution is, so that you can have interoperable communication. Phenomenal, and we see tremendous uptake in our push-to-talk services as a result of that effort. Z-Axis, I know Chief Johnson talked about it a moment ago. This is one we're really proud of. No commercial carrier, not even AT&T, would go forward and do Z-Axis, but FirstNet, because of this mission, we truly feel like we are a public safety company and strive to become one. And so because of that obligation, we pursued Z-Axis and have launched that so that we can give better location in wildfires, in urban areas with multi-level dwellings, just all over. And then I think Chief McEwen talked about the HPUE, high-powered user equipment, we call it FirstNet Mega Range, is also launched, and you can take that thing tens of miles off the coast and still be able to use it. And by the way, I will tell you, Chief McEwen is one of our most costly testers. So just so you know, he's a challenging tester for sure. But anyway, so lots of amazing things, innovation to come. But let's move to the panel. And it was described these last couple of years, the pandemic has overlaid everything, but more than anyone, we also over the last couple of years have had record wildfire seasons, record hurricane seasons. We've had derechos, we've had nor'easters, we've had everything you could possibly imagine. We even here in DC had the events of January 6th that challenged communications for public safety. And so let me turn to the national treasure, if I may, Chief Zagaris here. And Chief Z also won, everybody who you're going to hear from is poured into teaching me and my whole team what to do and how to do it and how to respond better for them. Chief Z, Western Fire Chiefs, you're intimately familiar with the fires, the wildfires out there. You're a leader in fire in the community. Help us understand the dynamics, what's going on in your space, and then how can we help and how has FirstNet helped you?
Well, one of the things is I think natural disasters are only becoming larger and more complex. Certainly in the West, our wildfires are growing in not only size but their complexity. They're burning, 1 million acres at a time on one incident alone, as an example. The length of the assignment for our firefighters is becoming very long. If we're running 2 months long wildfires, becoming very difficult. For the first time ever in California, we've had a fire go from the Central Valley over the Sierra Nevadas over the other side of the Nevadas. So just an example of the complexity that these fires are dealing with. The number of personnel. It's not uncommon to have 5,000 or as many as going back to 2017, the Thomas Fire, 8,000 firefighters on an incident. And I can tell you, those aren't all from California. They're all from all across the West, and in some cases, they're international. But being the fact that we do bring them from around the U.S., having interoperability is critical to our day-to-day needs. I think that's probably one of the bigger points that I can really talk about is the need also where wildfire technology meet. I can't tell you how much data we're driving what we do today versus what we did just 5 or 10 years ago. And it's really amazing to have the pleasure this summer of having some of AT&T's folks for FirstNet out to actually look at how much data we're driving, how we can do it better. We're just eating up the broadband with more and more all the time. So our people need more tools, they need more capability. Probably some of the best capability I've seen come out in the last year and a half has really started out with the Go Red Sci-Fi, at least for a non-mobile capability. It surely brought things about. Where I live in Auburn, California, I live somewhat rural. I have tough enough time being able to use devices, but we brought in the Go Red Sci-Fi. Actually gave me great capability, not only to take care of mine, but my wife happens to be on band 12, and so it does both band 14 and 12, so it was really nice. But one of the biggest things I think came out was with the mega range. It gives you twice as much power, and I think that's really a game changer, especially in a community that you've got some areas that are struggling with having reception. That's the big one. Not only that, but when you send mutual aid outside your own community, what a better way to stay in touch that alone. Probably one of the other interesting things last year, I talked to Chief Johnson and I said, hey, have you seen this article on the compact rapid deploy units? And he said, no. So we ended up at Rescue 42, checked out what they were doing up there in Chico. And I'll tell you this, what a game changer tactically, not having to wait to bring a deployable to get on scene. You can actually buy this, have it available. And it is just, like I said, probably one of the bigger game changers that's out there. And I think that the quicker, the faster you can bring capability, the better off you're going to save lives and property and make the coordination of that operation a lot better in the long run. And that's just a couple of the items just on the wildland side, without even getting into the work that the state of California did with the max vac sites, the state, federal FEMA centers that were deployed. I can tell you this, can you imagine being AT&T? We'd like 1,000 iPads, we'd like them overnight, and we're going to get them set up and get them deployed out to each one of the sites. And again, earlier we were talking about needing capability. That's just to run the information out there, besides the folks who are on the phone, because everybody else is using the other systems out there. So really worked out extremely well for us. And I tell you, the work we did with at Super Bowl, what an amazing, in Super Bowl 56 this year, just finished up with it. And I'll tell you this, you talk about eating up data, number of agencies, we need to coordinate and share data back and forth. At one point, I think I had a call on Sunday morning, the CAD web app that was out there. The state had had entered it incorrectly. The folks needed it ASAP, and I'll tell you, the folks from AT&T got on real quickly. In a short matter of time, actually corrected the problem and got that CAD back online so they could share it back through their phones. And I thought, wow, pretty good given the short notice. It was funny because as I was talking to one of the folks, oh, this is going to be tragic if this doesn't happen. I said, well, they may think so, but the game's going to go on without it. But again, AT&T FirstNet was able to meet that challenge as a whole. I thought was just excellent. One of the things that is out there is we use Fleet Complete for AVL. It runs off the LTE side of the house, but when we actually run out of LTE, it automatically switches to satellite, continue to bring us information back and forth, not only on where the vehicle is, but everything else, but there's also a Mayday button in that vehicle if the troops get in trouble. And so I think, again, technology continues to meet our needs. We continue to work more and more with all the applications that AT&T FirstNet has to bring us. Can't be prouder to work for it. The biggest game changer is really going to come. Our friends and coworkers from U.S. Forest Service and the Department of the Interior have been very slow with jumping on board with FirstNet. And you think, wow, no, they've been using it on these fires. They have. They've been using local government ComEl leaders who already have that capability. They've been bringing it out and utilizing it for the federal folks to be able to utilize. Well, now they're going to be able to jump on board. So as quickly as they're coming on board, it's going to be a major game changer, I think, out there. In fact, I sometimes ask myself, wow, why didn't the federal government make all the federal agencies that have the authority to use it come on board, being that it's a federal program, money going from one federal hand into another, building public safety? Well, it makes sense to me, but it's probably why it doesn't work, so I think it makes sense.
Very good. All right, Chief Z. So I want to step outside the scope of really the contractual FirstNet obligations for a second. And when I first came on board and started to sort of spend time with first responders, one of the things that I heard constantly was the need for mental health and wellness. We, are in the middle of a pandemic, a mental health pandemic, and I had police chiefs constantly telling me that they lost more lives in the line to suicide than they did in the line of duty while they were on their watch. And so we made that a mission, that we wanted to go make a difference and save lives that way as well. And so we hired Dr. Anna Curry, going back to my Army roots, and Chief Z was a fellow tanker, so we share that in bond. But Dr. Curry was helped start Army's PTSD health and wellness program, and so we've got her on board, and we're starting to come up with these initiatives. And I know Chief Z, Western Fire has used our ROG the Dog. Response Operations Group is the group that we send in that sort of sleeps at base camps and other things with these units, but we also have this concept of a ROG the Dog that can deploy anywhere to help with that. Can you give your experience with ROG the Dog?
Actually, was able to see ROG the Dog in action several times this year out on the wildfires within the West. And I'll tell you, after a busy shift out there and the troops were able to come back in, and a lot of them are missing their own pets or just needing to decompress a little bit. A lot of them are just attracted to the dog, and it is just overwhelming to see the expressions, to see some of that tension leave, not only just on these major wildfires, but I would tell you that a lot of agencies are investing in therapy dogs, and it's pretty overwhelming just to see how well they work. Not only out on the incidences, but after a very trying incident, you can bring them in. Even at the State of California OES, the State Emergency Operating Center, brought them in just for the folks that are in there operating. Can you imagine that State of California has had its Emergency Operating Center right now operating for over 700 days. So ROG the Dog's been in, I think, at least twice. people just are attracted to the dogs, and the dogs are very well trained, and it's just phenomenal to see it.
Very good. Yep. So now we know why he's a national treasure. So let's move now to Sheriff Adkinson, Sheriff of Walton County in Florida. And Sheriff, you've got, we were talking about it earlier, you've got interesting dynamic. You know, one of the things I love about this community is they talk a lot of trash, right? Like fire and law enforcement and everybody kind of reminds me of Army, Navy, you know, got each other's backs, but also give each other a lot of hell. So for you, though, you have a unique position because you have law enforcement and fire on the same team in your space. So why don't you tell us a little bit of Walton County, right there by one of my favorite places, Seaside in Destin, Florida. Tell us about the challenges there and what you're facing.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm a little bit of unicorn in that regard, right? having fire rescue, EMS, and law enforcement together. I speak about recliners and donuts with equal aplomb. I have to be ready at a moment's notice to go either way. Yeah, I'll tell you something. We're talking about innovation as it applies to FirstNet, but one of the things I would bring up, and I think it's important to the group, is when you say innovation, a lot of that is about doing something better, right? Doing it smarter. And that's the application of the technology, not to just be seduced by technology, but to use it better. Fire rescue really had a much better history, particularly the wildland firefighters, of using incident command. You know, those of us in law enforcement, we know that we were kind of latecomers to that idea. We really did not use that in a manner to its greatest level of efficiency. I'm a huge proponent of the work Dr. Jay Demings, and so what we did is we took this opportunity to take our communication as it applied to incident command and to eliminate problems and become more efficient. So now when I have 150 firefighters doing something along with maybe 40, 50 deputies at one time, now we understand how to communicate. We make sure that we leverage that technology so that we're more efficient in what we do, and quite frankly, not only better for the people we serve, we are making ourselves safer, for lack of a better way of putting it. That's not something I don't think we would have done a few years ago. If I'm being brutally honest with you, I think that the ability to communicate all across the board, but to implement that with incident command has been huge. It's a game changer for us. You know, the state of Florida is the 16th largest economy in the world. We're bigger than most countries. But the reality of it is we also have hit something like 500 hurricanes and tropical storms have hit Florida. The last two, Hurricane Michael in 2018, small hurricane, no such thing, devastating. $25 billion worth of damages. Hurricane Irma right before that, $50 billion. The reality of it is that FirstNet's ability to put out deployables, to get communication up and going when nobody else was communicating, was a game changer. It was an absolute game changer. It allowed the sheriff, the fire rescue, the emergency management personnel, and in an adjoining county, Bay County, which was the hardest hit county, to reestablish a game plan so that incident command actually works. Absent of FirstNet, absent of those deployables, that doesn't happen. And I can't tell you how quickly that changes people's lives. And I think, the people in this room know that. But I'll say as a sheriff, it reiterates why we knew this was so important. Unfortunately, if you go back and look at 2017, there was a massacre at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. And as incredible as it is, there are still communication problems that were the same ramification, the same issues that plagued 9/11. And in that case, in Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, you had 17 people killed, 29 children and adults shot, 20-minute delay because of communication failures. And here's the thing, this is where preemption is so important, and that because those communications were throttled down, that simply would not have happened on a FirstNet system. That's why I think this is so important. That's why I'm still passionate about this, after these years. I know you guys that have put in all this time and really the genesis of this. But for me, representing our firefighters, my EMS, my deputy sheriffs, our main job is to use the technology that you've given us. And the innovation is coming. I love the video stuff. I love the way it's going. But it's to maximize results with existing technologies. Doing that, we'll become more successful. And I think we're doing a good job of it. And I just can't say enough how much this is changing people's lives, saving lives.
Very good. Yep. That, again, going back to all the many of you who made this all a reality, that ruthless preemption is real and happens every day. Search and rescue mission, well, in your community, going to the beaches on the summer,
Sure.
you must go through, volumes of traffic changes throughout the year, right?
So if we talk about your Walton County, if you're not ordinance, it's about a 1,200 square mile county. It's primarily would be considered rural, except for the 5.5 million visitors. And so what happens is, during these surge peak times, if you have an incident, you can shut down communications, but not with FirstNet. I mean, so it really is a bifurcated county where we get to see both the metropolitan and the rural aspect of this. And so the success of the system, I think, is really demonstrated in a county like Walton, because really, the majority of all the country is rural, right? And from that standpoint. So it's just a great opportunity to show how it can work across a couple of different modalities.
Yeah, I know you have broad Florida roles as well, and we were there at Surfside with that unfortunate disaster for weeks, and the media and the volumes of people that surrounded that area clearly would have been a challenge. Let me shift now to Mr. Charles Guddemi. He's the Statewide Interoperability Coordinator for the District of Columbia, or SWIC, as y'all would know it. So, Mr. Guddemi, here in the District of Columbia, similar to what the sheriff just shared, very dynamic needs, always evolving, always changing. And then also, you were there, a 9/11 first responder. Can you just kind of talk to us a little bit about your history and then the unique characteristics of being here in the District of Columbia?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
We can hear you a little bit here. Yeah. Speak up if you
Okay.
can.
Yep. Going back to 9/11 was my previous career with the United States Park Police. I was a young sergeant assigned to the New York field office at the Statue of Liberty in Ellis Island. So my colleagues and I, we had a front row seat for that second plane coming in to hit the South Tower, watch both of those towers collapse, and just literally watch Manhattan disappear before our eyes. Talk about being on an island when you have no communications. It's a very lonely feeling. We saw all these boats going in. Little do we know at the time that we were witnessing the greatest boat lift in history at that point in time. So I know what it's like to operate in a non-communication environment in the fog of war. As I transferred down to DC, I was responsible for a lot of the special events and First Amendment activities on the National Mall and the White House zone. So again, these mass gatherings, whether it was your radio, the talk group was too busy, you couldn't get on, your cell phone, you couldn't get signal because of saturation, or looking at blue screens because your tactical cameras couldn't get any signals and transmit the video. It's a low feeling, and it's made my job as a SWIC a lot easier because I understand what the first responders, boots on the ground need. So as I came into my position in 2017, just making sure you could hear me okay.
Yep, we got you. We can hear you.
Okay. Yep, I came in 2017 working with the SPOC, the single point of contact for the district, convincing the administration, the mayor, to opt into this program, and we were ready to go for 2018. Parkland shooting happened in Florida, and March of 2018, they were going to do a big demonstration up in the district. They got their numbers. 500,000 people came to demonstrate the First Amendment right on the Pennsylvania Avenue corridor, which spilled over onto the National Mall. I went to FirstNet, AT&T FirstNet at that point in time. Okay, let's see what you got here. We're going to need your help. How can we help? Well, I need some phones. And they told me, we don't have any phones. And I had to double check the number I was calling. I said, I am talking to AT&T, right? What do you mean you don't have any phones? And at that time, they weren't prepared to roll out to support first responders in the field. Ultimately, they got me 50 phones. We distributed to multiple agencies in the district and some of our federal partners to see how the network would handle. At that point in time, we learned we were on orange SIM cards on the commercial core, and it wasn't this robust network that we have now, fast forward 4 years later. But that 2018 was a launching pad for education, not only for us, but for our colleagues at the First Responder Network Authority, as well as AT&T FirstNet, because after that, the Washington Capitals won the Stanley Cup, and we had the parade going from Arlington down Constitution Avenue onto the National Mall. And we needed more devices and things to help us out for communications, because again, we were impacted by the mass gathering and cellular congestion. We rolled that into the 4th of July that year, and then we hosted the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. So again, we were utilizing FirstNet at the stadium as well as the convention center, which gave us the first time to look at how the network would perform in an indoor application. Those 4 back-to-back events was critical for us from a confidence level, and also to provide a lot of feedback to both the First Responder Network Authority and AT&T FirstNet on how to improve everything. Today, we are proud to say over 95% of the district is covered by Band 14. We've come a long way. The remaining couple of things, we have some challenges due to COVID and some struggles with some of our federal partners to get access to some of those rooftops, but we're looking to close the gap. In terms of the structure, as I can see in the camera, a lot of my sworn colleagues there, any first responder program, the boots on the ground do the lion's share of work, but they can't do their job unless they're supported by the civilians behind the scenes. That's what makes an organization. Looking how FirstNet was built, we focus on the primary users, but in the district, we have an emphasis on the extended primary and subscriber groups, because any incident or event that we go into, we make sure we have our whole team with us. Even as I speak now, the district is uplifted as we prepare for this Freedom Convoy that has departed their cities on their way to the National Capital Region, as we also prepare for the State of the Union. It's a continuous education. We involve our partners at the First Responder Network Authority and AT&T FirstNet to provide us updates on the network, because our people want to see how it's working, and we haven't been disappointed so far. So Jason, hopefully I answer your question at that point.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Guddemi. And we talked a little bit about all the reports that came out after January 6th. There were articles written about commercial cell coverage being down, but first responders being able to communicate. Can you give us a little bit of your experience on FirstNet and what your departments experienced during that January 6th event?
Yes, sir. So after the election, there was a lot of complaining about the election results and all of that other stuff. So we knew we were going to have a difficult time planning for the inauguration. During that time, though, we reflected upon mega rallies that happened in the district on November 14th and December 12th. We had our hands full with cellular congestion, and we wanted to make sure we were prepared for January 6th. A lot of people think it was an intelligence failure, but going back, open source, the rhetoric coming out of the White House, it was clear to us that was going to happen. And because we were in the midst of our inauguration planning, we coordinated with our cell carriers to make sure that the deployables were ready to go. The only one that ended up working for us, for our first responders, was FirstNet on that day. So they were able to talk, share data, and full stream video back to command centers, which included the mayor and other city officials. And they were able to get the information to keep a heartbeat on what was actually happening there when DC assets responded to help save the Capitol that day.
Yeah, another example of ruthless preemption. Again, your vision coming to life. So let me shift now to Mr. Becenti. Mr. Becenti is the Executive Director for the Navajo Nation Telecom Regulatory Commission. Mr. Becenti also serves as a member of the FirstNet Authority's Tribal Working Group. Mr. Becenti, if you could, can you give us a view of what FirstNet has meant to the Navajo Nation?
Absolutely, and thank you so much, Mr. Porter. Thank you so much for the invitation, and good afternoon to everyone. So with that, one of the most recent things that I want to share with everyone is we just had the FirstNet Authority Board just come to our easternmost territory on Tahajale. So we would like to just first and foremost thank them for taking the time to come out and visit. So with the deployment, of FirstNet on Navajo Nation, we have roughly about 90 sites that are now broadcasting band 14 as well as AT&T commercial. One of the things I will often mention is we're early adopters. So before AT&T started deploying their network, the president and the office of the president and vice president was actually users of FirstNet. So whenever President Nez does leave off Navajo Nation, there's already his broadcasts are able to utilize that band 14 network whenever he's out in the field. Because one of the things that we had to stress during the pandemic was to maintain continuity of government. He was actually able to remain connected again while he was utilizing his FirstNet device for his town halls, vaccination drives. So that's just a couple of the different utilizations of FirstNets for government workers. So when it comes to leadership and also maintaining continuity government, because we also have our emergency management, police, EMS, and fish and wildlife that are now adopters of FirstNet. So with the network being deployed where it's at, we are beyond excited where everything is at, because again, the deployables was also extremely beneficial at the beginning of the pandemic back in 2020. We didn't have any AT&T commercial or band 14 in the area. So with that, all the networks from our regional carriers the traffic was so heavy that everyone was trying to telework as well as do distant learning at the same time. So this provided challenges for our Department of Health as well as FEMA to conduct their work. So of course, we reached out to FirstNet, which again, we requested some deployables for one of the sites. One of the sites was at our Department of Health, and then the secondary site was at our NDOT facility, just in case there was an exposure and we had to vacate the premises so they can perform sanitation duties. So there's a wide variety of reasons why we're FirstNet users right now within the Navajo Nation. The other additional thing is we're kind of concentrating on secondary users. So hospitals, even Navajo Nation Department of Transportation is also another component that we're looking to utilize FirstNet, because in the event there's an incident, you often have to collaborate between public safety, including all these other departments, to conduct their services. So that's ultimately kind of what Navajo Nation's doing, at least in the beginning stages, as a nutshell, because we're looking to utilize FirstNet even further in public safety vehicles with in-vehicle internet solutions, because one of the major wins is with our two-way radio network. We're trying to prepare and anticipate, or I'm sorry, we're trying to prepare and to convert analog to digital for 27,000 square miles. So with that challenge, we're looking at some of the newer technologies, and one of the major benefits right now is with some of the new two-way radios, they can be integrated into the in-vehicle solutions, which expand the two-way radio footprint. So if the public safety individual is outside the two-way radio footprint, but they have a connectivity, as long as they have everything provisioned on the networks between dispatch and the two-way radio network and the in-vehicle solution, it's a seamless integration. So that's kind of the up and up, and as far as the latest of what we're doing right now, Mr. Porter.
Very good. All right. Well, I want to just thank everybody on the panel. I want to thank y'all for being a part of this. Thank you for what you do for our communities every day. And I guess I'll close the panel by just saying thank you for everybody in here for making this a reality. I want to say it's our honor to serve this community who serves us so well. And that we will continue to stand on top of your amazing shoulders and try to stretch to be better every day. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason, and to our panelists, both here and remote.